All right, good afternoon again, and we're delighted to be joined for the annual treaty event briefing by David Nanopoulos, the chief of the treaty section, and as David said, he brought a friend this year, Vladimir, the director of the Division of Ocean Affairs in OLA, who will speak to you a bit more about the oceans, I assume. But David, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm very happy to be here once again to brief you on our annual treaty event, which will take place next week from Tuesday 19 to Friday 22 September during the high-level week. The treaty event was initiated by the Secretary General in 2000, and its spirit is very simple. The Secretary General invites head of state and governments and Minister of Foreign Affairs to seize the opportunity of their presence in New York to join multilateral treaties. And it has been a huge success since then, with more than 2,000 treaty actions taken over time. So you know that multilateral treaties are essential tools for member states to pursue the objectives of the Charter, but I believe it is particularly true with the theme of this year's treaty event, towards universal participation in multilateral environmental agreements for a healthy planet. In his letter of invitation to head of states, the Secretary General recalled again the need for a collective response to the triple crisis of climate disruption, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And multilateral treaties such as the Paris Agreement, the Kigali Amendment, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, just to give some examples, are among the treaties highlighted at our treaty event aiming to address this crisis. Universal participation to these treaties is absolutely fundamental to their success. It was celebrated recently here and elsewhere, further to the scientific assessment report on the Montreal Protocol on ozone depleting substances. Thanks to universal participation to this particular treaty, the ozone layer is well on its way to full recovery. I mean, this is a tribute to the potential impact of multilateralism to address environmental crisis. That being said, what we'll do next week at the treaty event goes way beyond the protection of the environment. The Secretary General is the depository of more than 600 multilateral treaties in all fields of international relations, human rights, disarmament, trade, and member states, and especially high-level authorities, head of state, head of government, will take action next week on a wide array of treaties. Now, before I conclude, I would like to mention briefly two major developments that happened this year in the field of UN treaties. We've got two new multilateral UN treaties. The UN Convention on the International Effects of Judicial Sale of Ships and the BBNJ Treaty that we'll discuss, I think, at length in a minute. The UN Convention on International Effects of Judicial Sale of Ships is a treaty in the field of trade. It's designed to promote international trade by ensuring legal certainty in the judicial sale of ships. It's also known as the Beijing Convention on Judicial Sale of Ships, the city where it opened for signature a few days ago in Beijing. And 15 states joined the treaty on this occasion, and we hope that many more will follow. Now, as you remember, 19 June 2023 was a historic day for the protection of the oceans at the UN. This is the date of adoption of the agreement under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversities of areas beyond national jurisdiction. In short, the BBNJ Treaty. This groundbreaking agreement significantly strengthened the legal regime of conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in over two-thirds of the ocean. It provides a framework for enhanced cross-sectoral cooperation, and this is a critical aspect to achieve the sustainable development of the ocean and its resources and to address the many pressures it faces. And we were extremely honored by the decision of states to open the treaty for signature on 20 September at our treaty event. Both the GA and the Secretary General call upon all states to consider joining the agreement at the earliest possible date to allow its entry into force. And we anticipate that many of them will do that on day one, on the 20th of September. We expect signature by a large number of states, including the presence of many head of state and government. Without any doubt, Wednesday, 20 September, will be the highlight of the treaty event. My friend and colleague, Vladimir, who is here, is the director of the Division of Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea, and he can answer any question you may have on this very important treaty. To conclude, just the logistics. It takes place next week from 19 to 22 September in the Kuwaiti boat area in the GA building next to the entrance, and this is open to UN accredited press. It's a fantastic opportunity for photo ops. We have put on the table here our booklets, which we also circulated electronically, which contains all the information you may need. And of course, I hope you will also look at our website, treaties.un.org, for all information on multilateral treaties deposited with the Secretary General. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Edie?
Thank you both very much on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. Obviously, the Biodiversity Treaty is going to be a highlight, but aside from the Convention on Trade, you seem to be highlighting the Ozone Treaty. How many countries have ratified that treaty, and who specifically are you targeting on that? And could you please tell us why the Biodiversity Treaty is so important and how many ratifications it needs to come into effect? Thank you.
Thank you. David's checking his...
It's a very easy question. The Montreal Protocol is universally ratified. So I'm not targeting anyone because all states have ratified it. This is why it worked. This is why it worked. This is what was celebrated by the scientists. I'm no scientist, but I've read the report. And the reason why those products that have been having this impact on the ozone layer that we're talking about so much in the 80s now have been phased out. So I'm using this not as to show you what we intend to do next week, but to show you how the universal participation in those treaties can be extremely effective. Now, there's an amendment to the Montreal Protocol adopted in Kigali in 2016, the Kigali Amendment, which actually has an effect not on the ozone layer, but on products that have another effect on carbon emission, on climate change. I'm no expert, but this is one treaty when we also are looking for universal participation. The numbers change by the day. We have more than 150 parties to it. And we hope that many more will follow. Actually, we have, for example, just for this one, I know that the Republic of Moldova will accept its amendment. Will accept the amendment during our treaty event.
Thank you. Pam? Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's 60 countries, isn't it? Yes, it's 60 countries, and the entry into force would follow 120 days from the time of of the 60S, deposit of the 60S instruments of ratification or accession, depends on the situation. The reason why this agreement is important is though because the oceans are in crisis. The oceans are exposed to anthropogenic effects. These effects are, of course, biodiversity loss during the human activities, pollution, we have the effects of climate change. The treaty is a major win for many reasons, but I'll just cite some of them. It's a win for multilateralism. We have a treaty which is the first cross-sectional treaty in many decades, adopted in the context under the United Nations auspices and by general agreement, by consensus on this historic day. It works to address global challenges. It has very significant contributions to the achievement of global goals. Among them might be contributions to the 2030 Agenda and the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And we hope that this treaty is also going to influence other processes. One of them is, for instance, addressing the issue of plastic pollutions, and there is a first actually ever mention of plastic pollution in this treaty. Of course, it's also promises to protect, the oceans in terms of ecosystem services and also sharing benefits for sustainable use of marine genetic resources and also providing for its conservation through, for instance, area-based management tools such as marine protected areas, or it's going to also provide non-monetary benefits for many countries in terms of scientific knowledge, capacity building. So for many reasons, this is a major win for the international community, and our expectation that this treaty is going to be, as David said, signed by many countries on the very first day and in the days thereafter. And there are also major hopes that this treaty will enter into force promptly, and the process will continue under the first conference of the parties, because the job has not been entirely finished. There's a lot of things which need to happen yet before this treaty, as we see the full impact and effect of this treaty.
Are you hoping to get more than 60 signatories? Obviously, there won't be any, there might even be a ratification, but is there any expectation of when this treaty might take effect?
So we are expecting certainly more than 60. I cannot give you the figure because I don't have it, because I'm sure that since I left my office in DC2 and came here, this number increased. I mean, this is happening by the hour. We have now more than 60 countries from all regions. But it's the signature stage, and as Vladimir said, we hope it will happen promptly, but signature is the first step, then they will need to be ratified, and so we hope it will come soon, but we cannot tell you when.
Well, if I may, on this ratification process, the treaty is a very complex treaty, and you know that in each country you have your own national processes that are required. It's usually simple for signature, but be quite complex for the ratification. It needs to go through the parliaments. In every parliament, deputies have a lot of questions. The process might be quite challenging. But from what I've heard, there are some countries really determined to speed up this process and to move fast towards ratification accession. We have seen an overwhelming support for this treaty during the adoption, and actually during the finalization, there was this major moment on the 4th of March, on Saturday evening, when the treaty was, after a marathon session of 36 hours, agreed upon. And so the support is here, the efforts are here, and we are going to be functioning as the interim secretariat, our division, and supporting the ratification process also through awareness building, capacity building, to unwrap the package and explain what this is treaty all about, how it fits into the overall scheme of ocean governments, especially how it works under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and related treaties, and there are so many of them, and also what's down in the road, because as I say, there are many challenges still ahead in the terms of conference of the parties, being in charge and taking the decisions that are necessary for full implementation of this treaty.
Thank you. Pam, then Amélie.
Thank you. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. Congratulations. Oops. Pamela Falk from CBS News, and congratulations on getting it moving forward. Let me clarify a few points and then ask the bigger question. The actual, it will be open for signatures here at UN headquarters on the 20th. Do you know of any countries that have already gone and got their ratification process ready? No. And do you expect, the UN Law of the Seas had a lot of problems. This is the first treaty to deal with the water beyond national jurisdictions in that sense. When would the marine protected areas part of the treaty, the MPAs, go into effect? That would be after 60 ratifications plus the 4 months, and that's when it would kick right in, or will it take longer?
So let me start first with saying that the United Nations Convention of the Sea, under which this agreement has been negotiated and adopted, provides a comprehensive legal regime. And in fact, there was not a legal vacuum in the areas beyond national jurisdiction, but there are certain aspects which are not sufficiently addressed.
Right.
So in this context, this treaty is functioning in the context of this convention, and in a way operationalizes some of these provisions of the convention which have been not yet sufficiently implemented, for instance, in the field of the environmental impact assessments. You know, the convention already provides for that, but there was not a framework. So this treaty is sort of sitting on top of that and supplementing the convention in this regard. Now, the process, the governance process under this agreement is relatively complex and requires certain steps before, for instance, the area management-based tools could be fully integrated. So the process, I mean, I don't want to go into the details under the treaty, but there is a process. So the advantage of the treaty, and as I see it, it's also the derived benefits. The treaty technically covers areas beyond national jurisdiction. That means the high seas and also the deep seabed area beyond the outer limits of the continental shelf. But states, when they'll be in the context of the ratification process, my assumption is that they would need to look at the whole, national setup. This will inform not only necessarily the establishment of the marine protected areas and other areas management tools beyond national jurisdiction, because they'll be looking also at what they have now in these zones under national jurisdiction. So you see, you are creating a momentum through this treaty which can have more far-reaching implications and impacts. So I can't tell you, when this is going to happen. There are talks about early implementation or provisional implementation. There might be some challenges on this because it's still areas beyond national jurisdiction. There are many questions to be answered, but overall, we are all optimistic that this agreement will do its job and contribute to the healthiest and more productive oceans.
And just as a follow-up, the U.S. had some issues with Law of the Seas, but has been very supportive of BBNJ. Do you expect a signature?
Well, that's for David to...
Yeah, it's too early to confirm.
Thank you. Amélie, then Carrie, and then
It's a
Efrain.
question to be addressed to them,
Yeah.
Thanks. Amélie Bottelier from AFP News Agency. I have just two very practical questions. First, what time is it on Wednesday that the signature of the BBNJ treaty is going to start? And is it like a group signature with all the states coming to, since you talked about photo op, all the states coming to sign it at the same time, or is it like everyone after each other?
Thank you very much. That's actually, I should have started with that. We will have the first ceremony taking place at 9 a.m. and it will continue until 7 p.m. It will be a series of 5-minute ceremonies, but each ceremony will be an individual one. You won't have group of states. They will come one by one. So Now you're asking me to do the math. 60 divided by 100 times 6. I don't know. But in any event, the 60 are signatures. It's not 60 ratifications. So the number of 60 you're referring to is not what will happen that day. What will happen that day will be signatures, which is the first step. But to become a party to the treaty, there's a second step, which is the ratification, and the threshold of 60 for the treaty to enter into force is 60 ratifications.
What may be useful, if I interject, will you be updating it in real time, the numbers?
So the way it works is because those are legal acts. And so each time, not only during the treaty event, each time a state expresses its consent to be bound by a treaty or sign a treaty, the Secretariat General issue a depository notification, which is the legal act informing all the other parties that this is done. Those come out in the evening because it's an automated system, also because that's how all the other parties in the world get them. We also have a press report with all the numbers for the day. We don't do them one by one. Also, I mean, it's a lot of 5-minute ceremonies with a very little team. But in the evening, you'll have a comprehensive report very soon after we're finished with exactly all the information you need.
Thank you. Carrie, please, and then Ephraim.
Thanks, Steph. Very quickly, the Montreal Protocol you mentioned, you mentioned that it was universally ratified. How long did it take? I mean, I was not here at the UN at the time. Did it take a couple of years to be universally ratified, or was it universally ratified right away? And how hopeful you would be that BBNJ would become universally ratified? I mean, it was very busy arguments when it was adopted. So, but what can we expect?
I don't know on the top of my head. What I know is that it entered into force because I went on treaties.un.org, which is where you find the official information on those matters. It entered into force on the 1st of January 1989, and it was adopted on 16 September 1987. In law of treaties term, it is pretty much right away. This is a very, very short period of time, not for universal ratification, for entry into force. Because, of course, you don't need all the parties for this to enter into force. I don't know what will happen with BBNJ. I hope it will be the same. I hope we will have a treaty into force in such a short term. Now, for the universal ratification, I don't know when the last one was, but it wasn't right away. It was years later, because, as Vladimir mentioned, each state has their own constitutional process, and some may take more time than others.
If I may, on the universal ratification of the BBN, on the expectations, as you might know, the General Assembly every year appeals to states and calls upon states that have not yet ratified the United Nations Convention on the Sea to join this treaty in order to achieve that goal of universal participation, because this is an ocean-related, and this is a space that is actually of equal importance to both coastal states and landlocked states, as given the importance of the healthy oceans for the environment and for the planet, for the climate. So expectations are the General Assembly has already decided to establish a new sub-item under the item Oceans and Along the Sea devoted to this treaty. And one might expect that this goal will be set up also in the context of the further proceedings of the General Assembly, similarly to the United Nations Convention on the Sea, along the Sea.
Can I have just a quick follow-up? Just because you mentioned how the Montreal Protocol was so successful, and we know that there was a significant progress in the ozone layer, right? So let me rephrase this, sorry. For BBNJ to be efficient, would it need to be universally ratified? Or, because we know there's been a lot of talks about it, around it, so do we need that to have a concrete impact and a healthy planet, as you mentioned?
Well, for efficient function of any treaty, it is important that of multilateral treaty, it is important that as many countries as possible join the list of parties for obvious reason. And that's for no stakeholders to be left outside of this system. There are very important decisions that are going to be taken in the conference of the parties. So a certain representation of the global community would be required. So definitely the answer is, the closer we go to the universal acceptance and participation, the better the world and the oceans would be.
Thank you. Ephraim, Arab News?
Thank you, Steph. I have a question about two other treaties, the one on the enforced disappearance and the one on the status of refugees. And I wonder in what ways these two will be highlighted. Have they been amended also because of the drastic developments that we've seen on both these fronts? And who would you like to see the signature or ratification of those treaties on? Who should be there that's not there yet?
So I don't have yet any action confirmed on, unfortunately, on any of those two treaties. So even though they were, both of them were highlighted by the Secretary General in his invitation to heads of states, we don't have yet any confirmation of any state that will take action on them.
Did you try to target any specific states for these two?
We don't do that. We are there to assist states to ratify for all treaties, but then for each treaty, it's their secretariat that do the work of targeting specific states or specific treaties, but that's not the job of the treaty section. We're there to make it happen after this job has been done.
Thank you. Stefano, and then we'll close it.
I'm not sure exactly about your job. I understand that he is successful. I mean, we understood that he's been successful. So yesterday, the Secretary General here told, say, good diplomats, good leadership needs compromise. Because you have been successful, what in your job you did that other UN in other areas, maybe it's not the ocean, but other things, what they can, imitate from you? I mean, what they can learn from being successful in arriving to these signatures?
It's very kindly put, but I think, and I really believe what I'm saying, I think in this case, it's the states that have been successful. And Vladimir will tell you more, but the BBNJ took 10 years to be negotiated. We at the treaty section, when we advise states and we help them on very technical matters, we have nothing to do with the political agreement. Those are based on political agreement, political deal. We're there to assist them to make it work, but we're here basically to serve the negotiators. We're not part of the negotiation in the sense that we're very happy when it happens, and we try to bring technical advice to negotiators during the negotiation of treaties. I'm talking for the treaty section. For the success of the BBNJ, it's a success of those negotiators and the Secretariat of this negotiation. But this is not, for us with the treaty section, one difference, because you have many depositories. Some are states, some are other organizations, and the Secretary General is the biggest depository in the world in the sense that it's more than 600 treaties, so it's the largest number of treaties. A difference with the depository practice of the Secretary General as compared to many others is capacity building, assisting states to join treaties, doing events like this treaty event, because of course states can join treaty any day of the year, not next week during the high level, but using the prominent space of the high-level week to actually promote those treaties. So this is the added value of having a UN treaty, of being in New York doing a high-level week. So yeah, that's what our job may differ from other depositories. But Vladimir, you may want perhaps to add something.
No, I think, David, you said it all. Thanks.
On that note, David, Vladimir, thank you very much. And Monica will now brief you on behalf of the President of the General Assembly. Thank you.